Welcome once again to Moral Side of the News. We're glad you're with us this weekend. I'm John Blim with the WHAS Crusade for Children. With me, as always, is a distinguished panel: Rabbi Emerita Gaylia Rooks, the Temple; Reverend Sally McClain, Christian Church Disciples of Christ; Reverend David Harkleroad, South Point Church; and Father Tony Smith, Archdiocese of Louisville. In the news this week, a former cult follower of Charles Manson was released on parole. Leslie Van Houten was 19 years old when, under the direction of Manson, she helped stab to death Lino and Rosemary LaBianca in their Los Angeles home in 1969. Originally sentenced to death, she spent the past 53 years in prison and was released this week at age 73. So turning to our panel on Moral Side of the News, how do you weigh in on giving someone like a convicted murderer a second chance?
Well, Jews are big believers in repentance and return to the path of righteousness.
Right.
I don't think that a convicted murderer should, just be, lightly released, but that is not the case. My understanding is that is not the case in this situation. Obviously, she has been imprisoned for most of her life, actually.
Right.
And while I understand that survivors and family members would be against that, I'm personally am a big believer in people getting second chances. And if they feel that she has been rehabilitated, that she understands about what a cult is and how we are responsible for our own decisions. I mean, a 19-year-old is really just a kid.
Right.
I don't have a problem. I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs of the case and this and that, but it seems to me that if she has proven herself to be a responsible adult, an independent thinker, as much as one can become such a thing in prison, I don't have an issue with this.
Yeah. I speak as someone who's had a blood relative murdered in the sense of killed, and the offender went to the prisons, of course. Let me just say, and to your point about her age, social science has always been throwing in their 2 cents for regards to when we become a morally responsible adult, to use the terminology. You know, in the Christian tradition, Catholic tradition, they always say the age of reason is like 7, which that has been already now. Social science will say it's more along the lines of when a person finally begins to understand right from wrong and why is in the late teens, early 20s. So that, to go to your point, at 19, she's still kind of a child, very malleable, and to someone like a Manson or someone of that nature. I also believe in second chances, where what's the old saying, to err is human, to forgive is divine, something along those lines. But we're, as I say, we're in the forgiving business in a certain sense in ministry. You know, we proclaim God's great love, as you say, for repentance and coming home again. So I think, and really, to be honest with you, part of me, I would leave that up to the courts. We are a system of laws, and if the courts say this is okay, then all right, fine. In a sense, there's a element of pity in my heart for her because, as you say, 53 years. As the article mentioned a little bit about, she has never had a cell phone. She's done, I mean, all this stuff, credit cards and the electronics, and well, I can't, can you imagine when someone hitting her with artificial intelligence, what that's going to mean? What it means to most of us, we still don't know. So I'm with you, Gaylia, in this sense. I know the family, quite often, and even my own family, I would say, it's not so much looking for closure, but it's really looking for more of revenge in a sense. I've been hurt. I want this person hurt. And that's a problem in itself, I would say. So I would say give second chance if it's merited, according to the laws of the land, whatever, give it, and let's see what happens. So
I would take the other side of this. I agree that there's pity and empathy for her, thinking about the young woman she was. I agree that there's room for forgiveness, but I don't think any of that means there's no consequences. Frankly, I think she should have been put to death long ago when she was sentenced to death. That's a whole nother issue of prison reform. And I think there's a level of cruel and unusual making someone live out a life sentence when they have a death penalty over their head. But that's another topic for another time. But The scriptures say in Genesis 9 that if someone takes a life, their life should be taken because they are in the image of God. That's sort of the biblical worldview. And I don't think that means there's no exceptions, but I certainly believe in the death penalty. I think there is consequence, even when there's room for forgiveness, even when there's room for empathy. If you listen to some of the interviews from the past, read some of the articles, yes, she was young, but she committed some real atrocities as part of this group, and I think was morally sane and culpable for what she did. I would add this. I was at the hospital yesterday, downtown Louisville, visiting one of our church members, and I found out about a case of a young man in his early 20s who in Louisville was shot in the back 4 times. He was not gang affiliated. He was just on the street, walking down the street. Someone drove up, shot him in the back 4 times. He's paralyzed basically from the neck down for the rest of his life. Well, that person, let's say a young person that shot him, they may feel remorse in time. They may realize it was a terrible decision. It doesn't mean that young man's ever going to have a life where he gets to walk. And I don't think that it's right to just excuse or say we give second chances in those cases. I think there needs to be a consequence, and a severe one.
I'm going to disagree with you, David. I am totally opposed to the death penalty.
Right.
I don't see that it teaches anybody anything. I think when you take a 19-year-old and you incarcerate them for almost the rest of their life, that is a severe punishment. I don't think she's ever really lived. When you're under the influence of Manson, a cult figure who takes control of your life, and yes, she willingly gave it up at that point, but also I think that is punishment enough. We are supposedly a cultured group of individuals. To me, the death penalty is inhumane. It's barbaric, and I really don't believe anybody should be put to death. I just hope that she has a chance to have a second life, a second start. She has a chance to catch up on so many things. My heart hurts for her, as well as the victim, but I believe that she was under the control of someone else and not capable at that point of separating herself from that particular cult.
I would just say, sort of in response, Sally, murder is inhumane. Murder is I think what you said of the death penalty, and I don't think it's an uncultured thing. In one sense, it's cultured to say we value life, we preserve life. I'll add that the death penalty is not in vogue, and I think there's a couple reasons. I think a lot of people don't take the Bible seriously. They don't take God's word at its face value as one piece. But, the principle of it, really, even people against the death penalty believe it. I want to give you one example. I think it was the Boston Marathon bomber, but there's been a few of these recently. There have been some pretty heinous crimes recently that states chose not to prosecute and intentionally pushed to federal court because they wanted the death penalty on the table. And these are states that have gotten rid of the death penalty. So I think that it's easy to say we don't agree with it, it's barbaric, we don't believe in it. But by and large, our culture still cries out for it at certain moments.
I don't think it's easy to say, Dave. I don't think it is. I think it's very difficult to say any more than if you believe in life, as the Catholic Church believes in life, from the beginning of life till the end of life, at least they're consistent to want to have a child, and then later on when something happens, want to murder that child with the death penalty. I just see that that's incongruent. It isn't logical at all in my mind.
Not to mention the fact that if you're wrong and you put someone to death, you can't undo that. Right. God gives life. I believe only God has the right to take life. Your quote from the Bible, at a time when you're wandering in the wilderness and you don't have safe ways of incarcerating people while you're traveling and to protect the rest of society, maybe that was acceptable then. But once the children of Israel reached the land of Israel, the death penalty was hardly ever used. If a Sanhedrin, the great rabbinical courts, If they put to get someone to death once in 70 years, they were considered a bloody Sanhedrin. That, that's the group at Yavna or different places. And the idea of a life for a life, the way, at least the way I've been taught and believe, is that was for a time when we didn't have a prison system. Now, believe me, I'm not a fan of our prison system. I do not think it's doing a good enough job working on rehabilitation and things like that. I think privatizing it is, for a money-making thing, that's another whole topic again. But she was put up for parole several times, and it was denied. The governor of California, various ones, and I have no problem with the way the justice system works according to that. My concern is that for someone who has been so sheltered from the internet, which has become so filled with hate and violence and inciting violence, and I worry about what kind of influence she will experience once she is out. But I think she's going to be in a halfway house for 3 years and some adjustment period. But then again, there are people who have never been convicted of a crime who are being suckled on hatred and vitriol from the internet, and I worry about them too. But I don't believe that the death penalty is think of all the cases that they once DNA came to the scene and they were able to prove that these people were innocent or these people were guilty. Also, the death penalty is incredibly racist and what's the word? For the wealthy people who get well-trained lawyers that aren't overworked or as much overworked, they're able to get off much more than poor people of color. And it just, to me, it flies in the face. The Hebrew word for repentance comes from the same root as the word return. And the idea that we are always able to return to God and return to the path of righteousness is just embedded within our, within the Jewish sacred tradition. And
I think also in the Christian tradition too, not to interrupt you, but
please.
But the whole, human life it's not an absolute, number one. It is a great gift God has given to us. And yes, life is not to be shunted away haphazardly, et cetera. And when someone takes that life, yes, there should be repercussions, obviously. But I've always been troubled by the logic. We hold life to be so important that if you take life, we take your life. Then it's like the old saying, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, we're all blind and toothless. Because the whole thing of what is important, and also not to get so much into scripture, what a Christian, but I hear a lot of people arguing for this type of morality based upon Old Testament scriptures versus New Testament scriptures. And there is a difference there into the whole thing of love and pardon. Look at you'd say St. Paul in the Christian tradition was basically a murderer. I mean, he agreed to all this stuff that they were killing Christians, etc. King David, an adulterer, a murderer in a sense. I mean, these are people who return to the way of faith, and we hold them in great esteem at the present time in both Testaments. So I just, I have, of course, I'm with the ladies here. Sorry, David, with the ladies. Even though having someone in our family that was murdered, whatever, that's when the whole concept of your moral understanding of life comes to play. Can you accept what has happened? And of course, yes, it's something terrible that has happened, but does that stop you from continuing to love and forgive, or does that put you right into the same position as the person who took the life of your loved one? I mean, I'm just some of the thoughts that come to my mind on that. I've always had difficulty with the concept of death penalty.
All right, panel, we're off to a good start on this program, Moral Side of the News. Thank you for your thoughts on the first topic. We're about halfway through our program, so we'll move on to our second topic. Health experts say there's no safe level of caffeine for children, yet a drink allegedly being catered to the young on social media has the caffeine equivalent of about 6 cans of Coca-Cola. Senator Charles Schumer of New York has called on the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to investigate Prime Energy Drink, a brand owned by Louisville-based Congo Brands. Panel, currently the FDA doesn't have a specific category for energy drinks or impose specific regulations on these products. Instead, companies are responsible for self-monitoring caffeine levels in their product. So turning to you, does that need to change?
Well, I would say in regards to that, I went online and said, let me see about this Prime stuff. You can pick it up at any Kroger store and any Walmart. It's available here in the Louisville area anyway. Yes, the guidelines were always 3 or 4 steps behind in what we should be doing as far as protecting life of the young ones. But you can find energy drinks all over the place, and this is just seems to be an extreme case. I would say to you, John, to your question, I think there should be some kind of guidance from the federal level in regards to what can and cannot be put into these cans, whatever. And then there should be consequences if they overstep that bound. Same way we did with alcohol, same way we did with cigarettes. I mean, the federal law and the state laws have an expectancy of taking care of their citizenry. And that goes down to especially the little kiddies. And to be honest with you, I went online and we say children. What are we talking about, children? Because I don't see on their advertisements kids at all. It's young adults, basically older teenage kids and young adults, which should supposedly, again, have a better grasp on what is right, what is wrong, and what's healthy for them. But look at the youngsters who are doing the vaping or whatever, the vaping cigarettes now, just as bad as others. I speak to you as a former smoker. But still, I think it's okay to look at the issue, decide the issue, and put out some guidelines for the issue, not just guidelines, but some regulations.
Well, you put it out there, you advertise it to young people, and you don't know what it's going to do yet.
Right.
And so they say, oh, well, this is cool. This gives me all this energy. When in fact, not until there's a death or a series of deaths does it become known that it's really very dangerous. And again, as you say, with the vaping that happened. So they put it out there, they advertise it particularly for young people and children, and they think, oh, this is a new fad, this will really help. If you want to do a little research, you will find that the best drink to replace electrolytes is chocolate milk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Caffeine really is a drug. I mean, there's no question. I have tachycardia. I have to limit my caffeine tremendously. So if you give up on caffeine and then, going to have a little pick-me-up, and I'm not talking about a Red Bull or anything like that, but even half-calf coffee, or I'm going to have a whole cup of coffee or something. If you're not a regular caffeine drinker, it's a drug. And I welcome the FDA, doing some research and what are safe levels at what age. I think that's their job. And I think you're right, Sally. Unfortunately, I don't want us to have to wait until, after some basketball game and the whole team starts chugging Prime and there's a death or something. I think that it would behoove us to know what we're talking about, and definitely not have them target teens in their advertising, because I'm sure the parents have no idea what, because they don't see ads on social media and things like that the way the kids do. So, a little education goes a long way.
Yeah, I agree. I am all for clear labeling, age appropriate marketing. Right. I was recently in Europe for a church work trip, and I was surprised. I was in Ireland. I was surprised. All of their cigarettes have pictures of people with tracheotomies and other issues. I mean, right on the smoking packages. It's really just very clear labeling about the consequences. But as I read these articles, I think. So I'm 100% on board with that. I think the Prime drink needs to be appropriately looked into, labeled. Actually, my kids are in elementary school and they've been asking for it. It's the buzz for kids their age.
Oh, wow.
But, I think that really, as I read some of these articles, the content, I'm talking about the internet content that some of these YouTube influencers are producing is probably as harmful or more harmful. Gaylia, you already talked about that.
Yep.
So whether it's the content they're putting out or the beverages they're promoting, parents need to be engaged. You guys talked about already. There's an escalating awareness of self and of wise and unwise decisions, and kids just are not equipped to make these. Parents need to be monitoring their kids, what their kids are watching, and consuming with their eyes and their mouth. So I think the whole thing is kind of just a red flag for parents, guardians to be aware of what's going on in their kids' lives.
All right, panel, thank you for your comments on that topic. We have a third topic and maybe one more as we continue on moral side of the news. Here's our third topic. The greatest passed away nearly a decade ago, but Louisville's Muhammad Ali will live on in a Broadway show if local creators get their wish. Louisville Orchestra music director Teddy Abrams is collaborating with others to create a musical based on Ali's life. So, panelists, would you buy a ringside seat?
Absolutely. First of all, I don't know about everyone, but I certainly am just so impressed with Muhammad Ali, and I think that he's a real hero of our times and certainly of our city. But I adore Teddy Abrams and the idea that he is overseeing or creating this. I heard that Lonnie, Ali's widow, has been involved in it to make sure it tells the story accurately. And I'm a big fan of musicals. I'm really looking forward to this. I think this could be, just something fantastic, and I hope that it will be.
I'm waiting to see "Float Like a Butterfly, Sting Like a Bee" put to music somewhere in one of these.
Absolutely.
But some way, I guess I had some growth in the respecting the man as well. It wasn't until after his death that all this stuff came out about what he was involved in regards to the community and education of the kids and all this other good stuff. So I don't judge whether it should be done or not. I mean, probably some people say, "Oh, let's leave." It will destroy the mystique of Ali or whatever. I don't know if it will or not. Let's wait until see the final product and see if that gets good rating. I'm kind of cautious. I won't go get a ringside seat right away. I would be cautious and wait and see what happens first. And if it gets, was it 3 Rotten Tomatoes or 5 Rotten Tomatoes or whatever it is, or however they gauge that. But then, but I think it'd be good not only for his reputation, his history, but also good for the community. I think it would be fine.
He was also, if I can just add one more thing, very big in interfaith work. He was really, since we're on moral side of the news, not only committed to his own faith, but really committed to interfaith work. And that was something I always admired about him.
Yes, right.
And I think
go ahead. Sorry, Sally.
I was going to say, for people to see the creativity that's going on in Louisville, I think that's a positive thing for the city. I think for the state. And so I would be really excited to see what they're going to come up with in the way of a musical. I can't envision a musical right now but I can see him dancing around and taunting his opponent. It could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Sally, I was going to say the same thing. I'm excited for Louisville for this. I think it's going to be good for our city economically. I would hope they'll even let it premiere here, maybe around Derby.
No, they're talking about that.
That's great. You'll have a lot of outside dollars coming in, a lot of outside folks coming in to enjoy the city. So I think it's a positive.
If you go on a cruise and you talk about Kentucky and you're talking to the cruise staff, what you're saying when you say, well, Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, or you can say the Derby. But if you really want to talk to the staff, you say Muhammad Ali. And then you say, well, I live in the same city, or I live close to where he lived. And, they're just in awe because they know Muhammad Ali.
What about Louisville Sluggers? Sorry.
No, you're right. I mean,
that's to the list. My only hope with this musical is because, as we've already discussed, violence is like the in thing. I can't watch boxing because I can't stand. I mean, the goal of boxing to me is that you inflict enough brain damage on someone that you knock them out. But I know it's a sport that people are very proud of and fond of and stuff. But I just hope that the musical doesn't cater to that, edgy kind of thing, to have that kind of violence in it.
No.
Did I say the movie? I meant the musical. Did I say?
Yeah, I don't think that it would. I don't think that's what. I think it would show the poetry more and the brilliance.
I hope so. I hope so. Mm-hmm.
Okay, panel, about 2 minutes left. Sally, you mentioned creativity. We'll end on a sweet note today about a local business. Louisville's Please and Thank You Coffee Shop was named the best cookie shop in the country by the readers of USA Today. The secret recipe: cookies are soft and gooey on the inside and slightly crisp around the edges. So they say, panel, grab a glass of milk and I'll meet you there. What do you think?
All for it.
Their cookies are fabulous. They don't have decaf. Well, I haven't been there in a long time. They don't have decaf coffee. What's that about?
But they probably have milk, Gaylia.
Their cookies are fabulous. And I think it's very exciting that we have the #1 cookie in the country.
It's one of my downtown Louisville offices. When I meet people downtown, that's I've got a group of parishioners that live near one of the Please and Thank Yous, and that tends to be our spot. So,
and I love the name, that it's about manners and kindness and caring. Please and thank you. I just spent 2 weeks with my 3.5-year-old grandson, and it's trying to put that please and thank you into there.
Please.
God bless you, Gaylia.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. When I picked him up at camp, he gets in the stroller and he yells back to one of the teachers. It's a school and a camp. And he yells back, "Thank you for taking care of me today. It was wonderful." And I was like, oh, that's so perfect.
Okay, we've got 1 minute left, roughly. Around the horn, your favorite dessert if it's not a cookie. Go ahead. Sally, let's start with you.
Oh, how about a piece of Derby pie?
Tiramisu.
David.
Banana cream pie.
Tony.
German chocolate jam cake.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I am coming.
Best banana cream pie in Louisville is at Anoush Bistro here on the East End. Anoush, the best white chocolate banana cream pie. Unbelievable. And I don't even like white chocolate.
We'll see if we can get them as a sponsor to Moral Side of the News.
There we go.
Thank you to our panel. That'll wrap up this edition. Thank you, Gaylia Rooks, Sally McClain, David Harkleroad, and Tony Smith. We'll be back again next week with an all-new episode, and the conversations will continue on Moral Side of the News. Thank you, panel. Thanks to you, the 70th annual WHAS Crusade for Children was a huge success. But it's not too late to donate. You can donate anytime. Just go to WHAScrusade.org. That's WHAScrusade.org, and see the many ways you can donate. You can always mail your contribution to 520 West Chestnut Street, Louisville, Kentucky 40202. That's 520 West Chestnut Street, Louisville, Kentucky 40202. Thanks for changing a child's life by contributing to the WHAS Crusade for Children.